You are listening to the Enterpriser Podcast, sponsored by the Fusion Group. We're joined today by Jen Warrington, who is the founder and principal of the Halifax-based recruitment and career development company, the Fusion Group. Jen has spent the past decade and a half providing recruiting strategies and hiring top talent across Canada and the USA as both an entrepreneur and as an executive. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jen. We're so pleased to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So I want to dive in. I'm really excited. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about, but let's start at the beginning here.
Sure.
Tell me how you living. Tell me a little bit about what's happening in your space right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are now a team of three.
Awesome.
In terms of the business, which is pretty exciting. And we have a full-time sourcer who has joined us. And in the recruitment world, that's just someone that helps with all the heavy lifting in terms of finding great candidates for our clients. So recruitment is insanely busy right now in terms of the need for talent for organizations and, you know, them having the challenges of finding the right talent and the right fit. So recruitment is very busy in our world. And the other side of my business, which is a bit unique, is the career strategy planning. So we help professionals with their resumes and their cover letters and LinkedIn's and preparing for interviews and just figuring out what they want to be when they grow up. And obviously COVID has posed that question to a lot of people, and we're still working through a lot of that with the clients that we support. So we've got two very busy umbrellas in our business that keep us going definitely for sure day to day.
Interesting. That never occurred to me before, but because we're coming out, I hate to say it, but okay, let's pretend we're coming out of the pandemic.
Right.
But that must impacted, like, positively impacted your business.
Well, you know, and I'm very cautious and considerate about how I articulate this, because I know that starting a business in the middle of a pandemic as the result of being impacted by a global restructure in my 9 to 5, I know that it's not been something common for a lot of people. So I try to be really considerate when I talk about it. But COVID really helped lay the foundation for the type of work that I was able to do and to build, especially when it came to the career strategy side of things, because so many people were impacted, right? Like mass layoffs, or, you know, I'm working from home and I don't really like working from home, or I love working from home and now I don't want to go back, and, you know, or just being impacted and thinking that the only option for you once you've been either laid off or lost a job or restructured or whatever that looks like was that you have to go back to school, when the reality is you probably have a whole lot of skills and abilities that you don't even realize that would be beneficial to another organization. And how do you brand yourself and package and market yourself through that, so that coming out of COVID, you're doing work that you like with companies you align with, and you're not fully feeling the impact of what the outcome could have been, like unfortunately so many other people were impacted.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess that kind of lends into I did want to talk more about your unique selling proposition, or USP, which I think, like, the first time we talked and you like I compared you to some of the other recruiting companies, and you're like, we are not that. And then when you explained it to me, I was like, wow, that is really cool, because I've dealt with a lot of recruiting companies in my own, you know, lines of work in the past, and like the Fusion Group is nothing like that. It's completely different.
Yeah.
So I would tell the people the way that you told me before, because I can't explain it properly, but people need to know that there is other things, there is other types of companies out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I love the recruitment industry. I'm a huge fan of the space and what that ultimately leads for both companies and then individuals looking for new opportunities. What I have seen, because I've worked agency world and I've worked corporately for recruitment. So I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly on all sides. And what was really important to me when I transitioned out of my corporate role and decided that I was going on my own was that I was going to go rogue, and I was going to do it different in the sense of I was really committed to building relationships. And I know that sounds cliche because that's what most people say, but I was really about how can I help your business, right? So if we look at it from a perspective of a company reaching out to me, I wanted to be able to say, yes, I support small to medium-sized businesses who are looking to hire, but might not have an HR team that can help them, or they might not have the budget to pay the traditional fees and things like that. So I created a business model that allowed me to be attractive and affordable to the small to medium sized business, so that I can come in, do the heavy lifting, because in corporate world as a recruiter you do a lot of the heavy lifting and the strategic planning, and it's not simply reviewing resumes, interviewing candidates, and then putting them in front of your hiring managers. There's a whole lot more to that, and I loved that part of it, so I wanted to carry that forward. And I've really always been passionate about entrepreneurship, so to be able to be that resource to entrepreneurs who had, started by themselves and then are growing but don't know where to go in terms of that next step in terms of hiring, I wanted to be able to hold their hand through that. So that was a really big piece for me as well, in terms of how do I differentiate. So building that relationship was, I need to know your business. Like, I need to know more about what product or service you offer. I really need to know what makes your business tick. And I wanted to know the inner workings, if you will, so that I could not only identify the technical skill sets in terms of, the boxes we can check, someone has this much experience, they've got this designation or what have you, but I also wanted to know what people fit inside that organization, so that I would be able to come in and, we might not be working on an active role, but if I come across someone who I'm they're going to really fit with your company, I'll give you a call and say, I met this person, they're fantastic. I know they're going to fit for these reasons. And then where are you potentially in a future hiring plan, so that we can talk about that and move that through. So I wanted to be very, very relationship driven. And I really wanted to know the companies that I worked with at an intimate level. That was really, really important to me. And then this other side of that was on the career strategy side of, resume writing and all of those components. Recruiting agencies as a whole, that's not really a space that they play in. And there's different, I don't want to say rules, but rules, regulations, policies, things like that, that if you're charging a fee to this client to place a candidate, you can't then charge that client for a resume. So we don't do that. We differentiate there, right? So if by chance I worked on your resume and supported you through the hiring process, and you ultimately, invested your time and your money for me to provide that service to you, and 6 months down the road, you are in fact the best qualified candidate for one of my clients, then your service fee would be reimbursed. That's how we would work that. But what I've seen is, a lot of professionals have no idea where to start. They have no idea what kind of companies are good for them. They don't have the skills and abilities to write their own resume, because it's really hard to talk about yourself, number one. And number two, you're not taught the skill set. We talk about all these things we're not taught in school. We don't teach our kids about taxes, or we don't teach them about credit. We're doing all these different things. And the same thing applies. We're not really being set up for success on how do you network? How do you market yourself? How do you talk about your accomplishments and your highlights to make you stand out? And so those skills are really, really important inside of, your resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn, and then all the other components that go with the career search. And I actually, I was talking about it with someone previously and said, as a business owner, if I want to submit a proposal or an RFP or something, I still have to have a resume for that. I still have to write why I'm the right company to be part of whatever this project is. So there is no one that doesn't benefit from having a really good resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn, because you never know when you're going to need it. So we are very passionate about that side of our business as well. And it ends up that we work with professionals that have at least 5 to 8 years experience and are just trying to figure out how to climb the corporate ladder internally or externally, or go in a completely different industry and change directions entirely.
See, I think that's why when you explained that to me the first time we spoke, right, I immediately saw why the Fusion Group was a perfect sponsor for the Enterpriser Conference. I've always been really passionate about helping small business owners and solo entrepreneurs and people who are just starting, figure things out. And so I really took a shining to your business, because I know that the larger recruitment firms, even my business and a lot of the entrepreneurs that I know, we can't afford that, right? We can't afford the big corporations, but we still need awesome talent, right? And so there needed to be another way. There needed to be there need to be someone, there's someone to bridge the gap between, going out and hiring, one of the big guys and me
Right.
learning how to be my own HR manager, which, I did eventually because I had to, because there hasn't been anyone out there to help. But I mean, that took 15 years to figure that out, right? To know all the HR regulations and hire people and fire people. I've done all that now, but there are lots of people out there who have no idea. And that's a really can cause a lot of impact on a small business, because you've got to have the best talent, especially when you've only got 2 people or 3 people and you're spending like there's not a whole lot of money in the bank, so you're trying to write payroll checks for these people. You got to have the best person, because you've got no more money left to, you be the best person on tap, right? And you can't be making mistakes. And so that was immediately, like, when you explained that to me, I was like, oh man, like this company needs to be at the Enterpriser conference, because there are thousands of entrepreneurs in Atlantic, Canada that could 100% be utilizing your services that probably don't even know that you're there yet.
And they don't know that I'm there for sure. I mean, at this point, because I think, when you transition from corporate onto your own, I mean, that the whole other piece of that is then you need someone to help you market your business and all of those kind of components. So I definitely haven't been able to reach as far as what I would like at this point. We've been very lucky that the Halifax market has been very kind to us in terms of that welcoming piece. And I have hiring managers that I worked with at Manulife that have moved to other organizations, and they have reached out to me. I worked for Eastlink for 2 years before I went to Manulife, so back in like 2010, 2011, and hiring managers I supported there were like, oh my God, I'm so glad to see you on your own now. I can use you. And like, how do we get started? So I mean, that's been great. The big corporations, I mean, I do believe that they probably do as well have a need for the approach that I use when it comes to recruitment. At the same time, I wouldn't say no depending on the client, but I've learned to say no to stuff that doesn't feel aligned to me at certain points. And where I'm very passionate about is the small business owner who's like, okay, I'm really good at X because that's how I started my business. But now that I'm growing and I need recruitment support, and I don't, like you said, you don't know the regulations or the laws when it comes to HR, I can get people through that. And one of the things we've actually been talking about in the business is, how do we go in to make it even more cost effective and more valuable for businesses around how can we build them out a toolkit, right? So that if they still really can't afford, because I mean, there's a fee attached to me. And I mean, it's not this, I don't go based on percentages like the traditional agencies and things like that, but there's still a fee to associate that can be, like you said, like you're trying to make payroll and different things that can be detrimental to certain businesses. But at the same time, trying to educate of like the true cost per hire and the true cost of a bad hire can be anywhere from like 3 to 8 times whatever you're actually paying that individual, depending on how long the position is open, or if you hire someone, get them trained, and then they don't work out. And so we've really started to explore, how do we give you, the small business owner, a toolkit that can really help you, but you still then get access to the 16 plus years that I've been doing this, and how to help you navigate what feels like sometimes very choppy waters.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't remember the numbers or statistics anymore. It's so many years since I've heard it, but I remember hearing something at a workshop one time, and the instructor was talking about the amount that it potentially could cost your business for like every week that you have a bad hire in a new business. And it was some ridiculous number, but I was like, yeah, that makes sense. You're putting all your resources plus payroll plus the whatever you need to do to train them, plus the amount of time that you're taking away from your own role in order to serve that person, to help get them equipped, and it can be,
there's a lot to factor in.
Catastrophic. Right? Yeah, it can be catastrophic to have the wrong person come in.
Absolutely. Sure. And for a small business, and so to me, I define like the small business as anything from like 0 to 10 employees, like at this point, because like if you're growing and what have you, it can have long-term damaging effects to not hire the right person, right? Yeah. For all of those reasons. And then just the fact that usually when it's a smaller team, we're all wearing multiple hats and we're all doing different things. We're not just doing the role that we've been, hired for, right? And so, I work with a business coach, and he's like super smart, and I just like I absorb everything that he says when we're having our conversations. And one thing he said to me is like, when you've hired an employee, that employee should generate 3 to 5 times what their salary is. And so I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because on the flip side of that is if you don't have a solid employee for whatever reason, or you're going without entirely, that is also 3 to 5 times whatever your salary might be, or whatever that salary pocket is that they're missing, that can, be detrimental to your business. So it's, it's on both sides of that, whether they're making you revenue or they're costing you revenue. And, we're all here to generate revenue and offer products and services. And if they're not representing your brand properly, or you're going without, that can be really detrimental to the long-term health of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I, depending on who I'm talking to, most entrepreneurs who have been entrepreneurs for more than a few months or whatever, most people get it. But I still have conversations with people sometimes, and like it takes as a small business owner, it takes a really, really long time before you can ever start to consider hiring people that don't directly impact your incoming revenue.
Right.
Like
absolutely.
Eventually corporations, a larger corporation and a medium-sized business does need people who do not directly impact your revenue. But in the beginning, everybody needs to be bringing in money in some way. That's just the way it is, right? You can't get around that fact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're hoping that they're going to love your business and invest in your business as much as you have. And the reality is that you can find those people. It's unique in that regard, because really at the end of the day, your business is your baby, right?
Yep.
So you're going to be the one that puts all of that into that. So if you can find someone who's stellar and treats it. So Lindsay, that works for me. She's even said, like, I feel like this is like my stepchild, and like I'm like the proud stepmom, and I'm like putting everything into it because I just love it so much, still knowing that it's yours, kind of thing. So I've been really fortunate to find someone. And so now I want to basically, I know I could go into a small business and say, okay, this is what your plan needs to be, and we can forecast out this many hires over this amount of time, and this is the type of person, and just literally be like, and let us take this off your plate because we can find them for you. And then just literally watch them go, like that weight has been lifted. And now I can focus on the things that make my business great for me and also make my business money.
Yeah,
right? Because that's why we're doing it at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and also especially with entrepreneurs, not burying yourself in things that you don't enjoy doing. Like I've started multiple businesses. Some of them I've started because I loved what I was doing, and some of them I've started because I wanted to make money. And I can tell you right now that the only ideas that ever survived or that I ever sold were the ones that I was passionate about, the ones that I set out just to make money, where I was just burying myself in work because it was profitable. It just doesn't work. And so I'm an entrepreneur because I want to be able to do what I love to do. And so when you have other people around you that will fill the spaces and things that you're either not good at or you just really don't enjoy doing, you're achieving one of the major goals of most entrepreneurs, which is to do what they love every day when they wake up, right? To wake up and go play rather than wake up and go to work.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
So tell me then about this workshop that you've got going on. Is it next month?
Yes. So actually, no, because yes, June's tomorrow. So it's so June 16th.
Okay. So yes, 16 days from now. Yeah.
16 days. So and again, through the different work that we've done, we've identified that a good 80% of individuals who sit on the side of the interviewing table asking the interview questions have had no formal training around how to effectively interview.
Oh yeah.
And so, right. And so we expect candidates to come into an interview prepared and like be able to like share the highlight reel and answer all the questions and just, again, be super prepared. And then those of us on the other side that are asking the questions also feel maybe a bit disjointed because there is no actual training provided, because sometimes you like move into a management role or a leadership role, and then your next thing is now being responsible for people, but you don't necessarily have the tools at your disposal. So I've built out a workshop called Interview with Impact, and it is to give hiring managers and HR professionals and anyone inside of the interview space that asks the questions and navigates that for the candidates. I'm giving them the skills and abilities and tools that they need to feel confident when they're sitting on that side of the table asking the questions to the candidates. So this is targeted at, like I said, individuals who are part of the hiring process, hiring managers, HR professionals, and we're going to spend 2 hours. We've created a really amazing workbook with a library of interview questions that can be asked and worksheets on how to put together interview guides so that you can go into that conversation knowing that, you know, hopefully your candidate is prepared, but knowing that you are. And so we're facilitating that virtually on June the 16th. We do have about 4 spaces still available for organizations. So how we've done it is it's a $2,500 fee. And it's for, you know, your company can send 3 participants in that $2,500 fee. So we'll have some, and then we're going to have some networking as well, because we also, again, we can learn better together when we're with a group of our peers, and we can share our frustrations when it comes to the interview process, but then we can also, you know, share some best practices as well. So I want that to be really interactive. We've got some really amazing companies that are already signed up to participate in it. And we're really, really excited about it, because one of the things that I've loved as a recruiter has been the interview process. And I really thrive in that environment. So I want to be able to give those hiring managers that skill set, or that at least that interest to hire more easily and more effectively and more efficiently, because again, that's a cost inside the hiring process as well. And if you're not sure about it, that can really like slow down your day. But then the other piece of it is that candidates, and I think the stat is 43% of candidates will remove themselves from an interview or hiring process when the interview hasn't left a good experience for them. So in the war on talent right now, and not having a huge amount of people at our disposal in the market the way we did before, you can't afford to lose a candidate that you may want to hire because they didn't have a good interview, in the sense of like their experience with that. So it's called Interview with Impact. We're going to facilitate it virtually on June 16th. We actually finished the workbook last week, and it's a 30-page workbook for hiring managers to basically have at their fingertips when they need support. And we're really, really excited about it. We've run through the presentation piece a few times, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get you to throw out your email address at the end of the podcast, so that people can get in touch with you about that.
Absolutely.
But I was hoping that you could also give the listeners a bit of a sneak peek about the workshop that you're going to be holding at the Enterpriser Conference. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm super excited, and even though it feels far away, I know it's literally going to fly by, and before you know it, we're going to be
tomorrow.
together doing that.
It's going to be tomorrow.
Yeah, basically, right?
Yeah.
So the workshop that we decided on for this is going to be, until this happens, it's going to be exclusive. Like, we're not going to facilitate it or do anything with it ahead of time. It's going to basically be first time that it's going to happen is going to be at the Enterpriser Conference. And it's going to be 3 things that your business can implement today to create a really powerful workforce brand. And it sounds like, oh my gosh, that sounds like such a big mountain to climb, but it's actually, there are a couple pieces that are super simple and really effective that can have a huge difference. And things that people will be able to, as a business owner, regardless of the size of your business, right, that they can implement and start fairly quickly. Without our support, I mean, obviously we want to educate and provide tools that someone can walk away from the workshop with and go, okay, I can do this immediately. And then there'd be other components that they'd be able to engage us with further if they're interested in learning more. But we're going to talk around the benefits of leveraging LinkedIn from an employer perspective. Like, the LinkedIn page for our business is so crucial. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to create an employment brand, because, you know, we always have the brand of the company of like what the product or the service does, but then there's that other layer of like, why would someone want to come to your company and work for you, and how do we start to communicate that message inside of it, and then look at different ways that we can build out career frameworks for individuals, because I truly believe, and this is based on my corporate recruitment experience, but I truly believe that hiring is only one component of the whole entire process for somebody. And I really look at it from a 3-prong model of You have to know how to attract them. So that becomes like, why does someone want to work here, which is your employment brand. And then obviously hiring them, and that's the candidate experience and getting in the talent in the door. But then it's how do you retain them? And that's such a crucial piece inside of that. So we're really big on attract, hire, and retain. So into the retaining piece, it's around how do you build a career framework that person won't stay in that role for its entirety, but they might not also just move to like whatever the next normal position is in terms of that career progression. They might stay inside your organization, but the goal is how do you person comes through the door and how do you provide them with a career framework so they stay with your organization? Because then the longer someone's with your business and the better they know it, they become the Google of your company, right? Like they're such an invaluable resource that you can't operate without them.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely, like, I've worked as a consultant and also years ago, even as an employee in both types of companies that had no strategy and for retaining, and then companies who it seemed as though that was like one of the most important things was making people proud to be able to say that they worked at the company. And man, what a difference it makes! Like you have employees who will vehemently defend their company because they're so proud that they work there, right? And that translates into so many intangible benefits, like for obviously attracting people. Also, there's a lot of benefits on social media that has. People talk about their business, how much they love the company they work for. They talk about the product even though they may not sell it directly. But there's tons and tons of other benefits out there that are so important, and that's why that's why I thought it was such a great idea to have like creating that brand around your business at the events. I'm pumped. I'm going to be making it a point to actually sit in on this one.
You said that, and I'm holding you to that for sure, because I think I think for me, having the beauty of the experience of like starting an agency world and then moving into corporate and now going back on my own. And while I would fit under an agency umbrella, and like we've said a number of times, I don't really fit under the agency umbrella, being able to see all of that and then knowing how to be able to come in and say, you know what, I can help you with all of your talent needs, whatever they may be. And sometimes it is just hiring staff and filling the leak because it's like we're so busy and we need bodies, but then how to look at it from 30,000 feet and go, you know what, we can make this something really, really amazing for your company and set you apart. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing better than someone knocking on your door saying, I've heard great things about your company and I want to come work here, because we know we're going to hear the negatives if a company isn't great, because there's places to put reviews for those things, and negative word of mouth spreads much faster. But it's so amazing to be like, I've heard amazing things about your company and I want to work here, and I found out about it, you know, through word of mouth or through your LinkedIn page or work that you're doing. And to be able to have that as a milestone win, I think is really what every company, regardless of size, should be focusing on.
Right, absolutely. So if people want to get in touch with you then for the workshop that's coming up in 15 or 16 days, or for anything, how would they go about doing that? Is the website the best way to do it, or to email you, or what?
So email me at Jen with one N, Jen, at thefusiongroup.ca. Okay. The best place right now, we're going through a rebrand on the website. So the best place to really get me right now is LinkedIn. And just find me over there, because I'm always on the platform. I'm a huge fan of it and the benefits to it, for what it can do for everybody. And so if you don't remember an email address, then as long as you remember the name, then you can absolutely find me over there, and I can give you all the information you need and get you either signed up for a workshop or help you with whatever else you might need, or just, you know, chat through kind of thoughts and strategies you might have for your business.
Awesome.
When you're hiring.
Awesome. All right, great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Jen. I sincerely appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing the workshop at the Enterpriser Conference. I'm really pumped. Thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, bye-bye. Be sure to subscribe to the Enterpriser podcast for new episodes every 2 weeks. And also, jump on to www.enterpriser.org to reserve a ticket to the Enterpriser Conference next April.